My parents gave my sister $100,000 for her wedding, but told me, "You don't deserve any help." So I cut ties and moved on with my life. 3 years later, my sister drove past my $2 million home and called my mom in tears, asking, "Why does she have that?" Imagine pouring your heart out, sharing the most joyful news of your life, your engagement, only to be utterly blindsided by a family conversation so cold, so laced with judgment, it felt like a betrayal. That crushing moment, where the truth of my parents' conditional love finally slammed into me, wasn't just a turning point. It was the spark that set my entire life on a path I never could have predicted. My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 now, but this story begins much earlier. We lived in Boston, in a beautiful colonial house, the picture of the perfect American family. My dad was a respected surgeon, my mom a tenured university professor. We took annual vacations, celebrated holidays with extended family. It all looked idyllic from the outside. But inside, beneath that polished surface, there was always an unspoken hierarchy, a quiet, constant comparison. My older sister, Vanessa, was the golden child. She was everything my parents valued, academically brilliant, effortlessly graceful, and always eager to follow the precise life path they'd mapped out. She even looked the part, with my mom's honey blonde hair and blue eyes, while I, with my darker hair, took after our dad. The differences, though, went far beyond appearances. The favoritism started early, a subtle drip that eventually became a torrent. When it was time for high school, Vanessa got a spot at Phillips Academy, an elite private school that cost a staggering $30,000 a year. My parents spared no expense, convinced it would pave her way to success and invaluable connections. 2 years later, when my turn came, the tune changed. "Tuition has become too expensive," my mom explained, almost apologetically. "We need to be practical about finances." So, I was enrolled in our local public school. "Besides," she added, "you've always been more independent than your sister." That independence wasn't a personality trait, it was a necessity. While Vanessa received constant guidance and a safety net, I was learning to figure things out entirely on my own. Her 16th birthday was a lavish affair. A brand new Honda Civic, gleaming in the driveway with a huge red bow, photos, a special dinner. "You've proven yourself responsible," my dad beamed, handing her the keys. "We are so proud of you." When my 16th birthday rolled around, there was no car, no bow. Instead, my parents suggested I get a part-time job if I wanted a vehicle. So, I spent weekends and summers slinging coffee, saving every penny. Eventually, I scraped together enough for a 10-year-old Toyota. It had questionable brakes and no air conditioning, but it was mine. "This will teach you the value of hard work," my dad declared, as if the lesson had been intentional all along. The pattern continued relentlessly. After high school, Vanessa got a grand tour of Europe, a reward for her academic achievements. I was told, quite flatly, that college was expensive enough without additional travel. For university, she went to Northwestern, with all expenses covered, tuition, a comfortable off-campus apartment, and a generous monthly allowance. When it was my turn to apply, the conversation shifted dramatically. "We've already spent so much on education," my mother explained. "Student loans will teach you fiscal responsibility. Everyone has debt these days." I managed to secure a partial scholarship to Boston University, but still had to take out substantial loans. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, juggling it with a full course load. And unlike Vanessa, who studied business administration as my father suggested, I pursued marketing, directly against their advice. "Marketing is for people who couldn't get into better programs," my father once sneered at a holiday dinner, not bothering to lower his voice. Despite the constant comparisons, despite the casual dismissals, I excelled. I made the dean's list every semester, secured competitive internships, and, crucially, built a network of supportive friends who became like family. And then, during my junior year, I met John. He was studying computer engineering, working in the university's IT department to pay for school. Like me, he'd been raised with the expectation of self-sufficiency. His parents, both school teachers, had made it clear they couldn't finance his education or lifestyle. Instead of feeling entitled, he embraced the challenge with determination and grit. We clicked instantly. While Vanessa and I had grown distant as our lives diverged, John and I grew closer with every shared challenge. We studied until the library closed, ate cheap meals in our tiny apartments, and dreamed of building something meaningful together. After graduation, I landed a position at a digital marketing agency, and John joined a software development firm. We moved in together to save rent, carefully budgeted our expenses, and slowly, painstakingly, paid down our student loans. While Vanessa had moved back home for a year after college, enjoying free housing while leisurely searching for a job, John and I pushed forward, independent and united. 3 years after graduation, John proposed on a hike through the White Mountains. There was no elaborate setup, no expensive ring. Just a genuine moment between two people who had built a foundation of mutual respect and love. The ring had belonged to his grandmother, a simple gold band with a small diamond, and it meant more to me than any extravagant jewelry ever could. "We don't need anything fancy," I told John as we started discussing wedding plans. "Just something small, meaningful, with the people who truly care about us." We set a budget of $10,000, which represented months of careful saving. Our plan was a simple ceremony in a local park, followed by a reception at our favorite neighborhood restaurant. No elaborate floral arrangements, no designer dresses, just a sincere celebration of our commitment. That was our plan. Until Vanessa announced her engagement to Gregory, the son of one of my father's partners at the hospital. Gregory had never worked a day in his life, living off a trust fund and family connections, but he came from the right background, with the right pedigree. My parents were ecstatic. Little did I know, this announcement would set in motion a series of events that would change my relationship with my family forever. The evening Vanessa called to share her news, my parents threw an impromptu celebration. Expensive catering, bottles of champagne they'd been saving, close family friends invited with just a few hours' notice. I received the invitation via text message, almost an afterthought. "Your sister is engaged. Dinner at 7. Try to be on time." John and I arrived promptly, the house already buzzing. With people congratulating Vanessa and admiring her enormous diamond ring. Gregory stood beside her, charming everyone with stories about his proposal at a 5-star resort in the Maldives. My mother fluttered around them like a delighted butterfly, while my father kept clapping Gregory on the shoulder as if welcoming a long-lost son. "We are so thrilled to welcome Gregory to the family," my mother announced during dinner. "And of course, we want to give them the wedding they deserve." My father raised his glass. "Which is why your mother and I have decided to give Vanessa and Gregory $100,000 toward their wedding expenses." Gasps of approval echoed around the table as Vanessa squealed with delight and hugged our parents. I felt John tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand under the table. I was genuinely happy for my sister, even as I recognized the stark contrast to our own modest plans. Later that evening, as guests were leaving, Vanessa pulled me aside to show me her wedding Pinterest board. "I'm thinking about a destination wedding in Napa Valley," she gushed. 200 guests minimum, a designer gown, and a live band. "Oh, and you'll be one of my bridesmaids, of course. Not maid of honor, though. That's going to be Olivia." Olivia was her college roommate, someone she'd known for less than 5 years. I smiled and nodded, pushing down the slight sting of being relegated to secondary status, even in her bridal party. "That sounds beautiful, Vanessa. John and I are planning something small, but we're really excited, too." "Oh," she said, her enthusiasm dimming slightly. "When are you thinking about having it?" "In about 6 months at Riverside Park. Just close friends and family." 6 months? That's so soon. And outdoors? What if it rains? She looked genuinely confused, as if she couldn't comprehend choosing something so simple. "We want to keep it intimate and meaningful," I explained. "And we're working with what we can afford." Vanessa glanced toward our parents, who were chatting with Gregory. "Well, I'm sure Mom and Dad will help you too," she said, though her tone suggested she was less than certain. That conversation, despite the doubt in her voice, planted a tiny seed of hope. Perhaps my parents would offer some assistance with our wedding too, not the extravagant sum they'd given Vanessa, but something to indicate they valued my happiness equally. With this fragile hope in mind, John and I decided to speak with them directly the following weekend. I called my mother, asking if we could come over for dinner to discuss our wedding plans. There was a pause on the line before she agreed, suggesting Sunday evening. When we arrived, the atmosphere was noticeably different from the celebratory mood of Vanessa's announcement. The house was quiet. No special dinner prepared. My mother had made a simple lasagna, and my father was watching golf in the living room until my mother called him to the table. We made small talk through most of the meal, my parents asking John about his job and commenting on the recent weather. It was as if they were deliberately avoiding the very subject we had come to discuss. Finally, as my mother served coffee, I decided to broach the topic. So, John and I have been planning our wedding, I began. Nothing elaborate, just a small ceremony at Riverside Park with a reception at Martinelli's restaurant afterward. We've been saving, but it's still going to be tight with our student loans and rent. My parents exchanged a look that I couldn't quite interpret. My father cleared his throat. "And what exactly are you expecting from us?" he asked, his tone immediately putting me on the defensive. "We're not expecting anything," John interjected politely. "But Sarah thought it would be nice to discuss if you might want to contribute in some way, as is traditional in many families." My mother set down her coffee cup with a clink. "Traditional is for traditional couples," she said, her voice sharp. "Couples who follow the proper order of things." "What is that supposed to mean?" I asked, feeling a chill spread through my chest. My father leaned forward, folding his hands on the table. "It means, Sarah, that your sister has always made choices that align with our family values. She attended the right schools, pursued a respectable career path, and is marrying into a family that will enhance her social standing and security. While you," my mother continued, her gaze unwavering, "have consistently chosen to do things your own way. You rejected our advice about college. You picked a career in advertising of all things, and now you are planning to marry." She trailed off, glancing at John as if he were a piece of furniture she didn't quite know where to place. "A software engineer," John filled in, his voice steady despite the obvious insult. "Someone we barely know," my father corrected. "Someone from a background that frankly does not match our family social circle." It felt as if I had been slapped. "John is brilliant, kind, and hardworking," I retorted, my voice trembling. "His parents are educators. What exactly is wrong with his background?" "There's nothing wrong with being a school teacher," my mother said in a tone that suggested quite the opposite. "But Vanessa is making a match that will secure her future. Gregory's family has connections, resources, a standing in the community." "So this is about money?" I asked, incredulously. "It is about choices," my father said firmly. "And the simple fact is, Sarah, that you do not deserve the same help Vanessa does. You have not earned it." The words hit me like physical blows. "You do not deserve. You have not earned it." "What would I have needed to do to deserve your support?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Marry someone rich? Study what you wanted me to study? Be someone other than who I am?" My mother sighed, as if I were being deliberately difficult. "This attitude is exactly what we're talking about. Vanessa understands family obligation. She visits regularly, attends functions with us, maintains the right social connections. What have you done besides pursue your own interests without any regard for how it reflects on us?" "We have worked hard," I said, fighting back tears. "We've paid our own way, built careers we're proud of, found happiness together. I thought that would matter to you." "What matters," my father said coldly, "is that we are giving Vanessa $100,000 for her wedding because she deserves it. We will attend your wedding as guests, but do not expect financial support. You have made your independent choices. Now live with them." John reached for my hand under the table, his touch grounding me as the room seemed to spin. "I think we should go," he said quietly. As we stood to leave, my mother delivered a final, stinging blow. "Vanessa has always done everything right. I'm sorry to say it, Sarah, but you have been nothing but a disappointment." The drive home passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. The parents who should have loved me unconditionally had just confirmed what I had suspected for years. In their eyes, I would never measure up to my sister. Not because of any moral failing or lack of achievement, but simply because I had chosen to be authentically myself rather than the daughter they had wanted me to be. That night, as John held me while I cried, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. If my family couldn't accept me as I was, perhaps it was time to redefine what family meant to me. The morning after that devastating dinner, I woke up with swollen eyes and an ache in my chest that felt physical. John had already made coffee and was sitting at our small kitchen table, researching budget wedding venues on his laptop. "Maybe we could cut the guest list even further," he suggested as I joined him. "Or push the date back a few months to save more." I shook my head, still processing the events of the previous night. "I can't believe they actually said those things to me to us." John reached across the table to take my hand. "Their loss," he said simply. "We are going to build an amazing life together, with or without their blessing." His quiet confidence steadied me, but I still felt the need to talk to the one person who might understand the complexity of my relationship with our parents. I decided to call Vanessa, hoping that sisterly solidarity might transcend our differences. I waited until later that afternoon, when I knew she'd be on her lunch break. The call connected after several rings. "Sarah, this is a surprise. Is everything okay?" Her tone was pleasant, but distracted. "Not really," I admitted. I had dinner with Mom and Dad last night to discuss our wedding plans, and it didn't go well. Oh, she said, suddenly sounding uncomfortable. They mentioned you might be asking for money. The casual way she said it stung. Not just the assumption that I had been asking for a handout, but the fact that my parents had already discussed the situation with her. I wasn't asking for money, I clarified. I just thought they might want to contribute something to my wedding, like they are for yours. But they made it very clear that I don't deserve their help. There was a pause on the line. Look, Sarah, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but you have to admit you've always done things your own way. You can't expect the same support when you don't follow the path they laid out. I felt my throat tighten. So you agree with them that I am undeserving because I made my own choices? Don't be so dramatic, she snapped. It's not about deserving. It's about family expectations. I fulfilled them. You rebelled against them. Actions have consequences. Expectations like what? I challenged. Marrying someone wealthy? Following a career path I have no interest in. Don't be jealous of me because I chose the right path, Vanessa snapped. Gregory and I share values with Mom and Dad. We participate in family traditions. We maintain the right social connections. We consider how our choices reflect on the family name. What have you ever done except pursue your own agenda? It was eerily similar to what my mother had said. I realized then that Vanessa was not going to be my ally in this. She had too much invested in the family dynamic as it stood, with her as the golden child and me as the disappointment. I thought you might understand, I said quietly. Or at least recognize how unfair this is. Life isn't fair, Sarah. Some of us work hard to maintain family harmony, while others just do whatever they want and then complain about the consequences. Look, I have to go. Gregory is waiting to take me to look at potential wedding venues. The call ended, and with it, my last hope of finding understanding within my family. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, staying late at the office and taking on additional projects. John worried about me but understood my need to focus on something productive rather than dwell on the pain. Meanwhile, Vanessa's wedding planning proceeded at full speed. My mother sent group texts with updates about venue selections, floral arrangements, and dress fittings. Each message was like salt in a wound, but I responded with brief, polite enthusiasm. Then, I received a formal bridesmaid invitation in the mail, complete with a list of expectations, attendance at 5 pre-wedding events, purchase of a specific dress costing nearly $1,000, and contribution to a luxury bachelorette weekend in Miami. The financial burden alone would have been significant, but it was the emotional toll I couldn't bear. After careful consideration, I called Vanessa to decline the bridesmaid role, offering instead to attend as a regular guest. Her reaction was immediate and furious. This is so typical of you, Sarah. Always thinking of yourself instead of supporting your family. Everyone is going to ask why my own sister isn't in my wedding party. You can tell them the truth, I suggested. That I can't afford the financial commitment right now. This isn't about money. This is about your attitude. You have always been jealous of me, and now you are trying to ruin my special day. No amount of explanation could convince her that my decision wasn't driven by jealousy. The conversation ended with her threatening to uninvite me entirely, though a formal invitation still arrived in the mail 2 weeks later. As the wedding date approached, John and I discussed whether we should attend at all. Part of me wanted to avoid the event and the inevitable emotional minefield it represented, but another part felt that not attending would only reinforce their narrative about me being selfish and unsupportive. We'll go, John decided. Hold our heads high, be polite, and leave early if needed. We have nothing to be ashamed of. Vanessa's wedding day dawned bright and clear, a perfect June Saturday at a vineyard in Napa Valley. John and I arrived early, dressed well, but not ostentatiously. The venue was spectacular, with flowering vines, elegant table settings, and a string quartet playing softly in the background. Every detail screamed expense and privilege. I made my way to the bridal suite to offer congratulations before the ceremony. Vanessa was surrounded by her bridesmaids, all wearing identical lavender gowns. She looked stunning in a custom designer dress that probably cost more than our entire wedding budget. Sarah, she acknowledged me coolly. I'm glad you could make it. You look beautiful, I said sincerely. Congratulations. She accepted the compliment with a nod. Mom has seated you and John at table 11, with the cousins from Dad's side. I hope that's okay. Table 11, I later discovered, was the farthest from the head table, tucked behind a large floral arrangement. We were seated with distant relatives who seemed confused about who we were. One elderly great-aunt repeatedly asked John if he was the photographer boy. During the reception, my parents made their rounds, stopping at every table to chat with guests. When they reached ours, their greeting was cordial but brief. "Sarah, John, glad you could make it," my father said stiffly, as if we were business acquaintances rather than family. "Lovely ceremony," I offered. "Vanessa looks happy." "She deserves it," my mother replied. "She has always made us proud." The implication hung in the air between us, unlike you. But the real knife twist came during the toasts. My father stood, glass raised, and spoke about the joy of watching his daughter grow into an exemplary woman who had fulfilled every hope they had for her. "Vanessa has never taken a misstep," he said proudly. "Every choice, every decision has been thoughtful and aligned with our family values. And now she has found a partner who shares those values and will help her continue our family legacy of excellence." My mother followed with her own speech, highlighting Vanessa's adherence to tradition and family duty. "Some children follow their own path," she said, her gaze briefly finding me in the crowded room. "But Vanessa has always understood the importance of family expectations. This wedding, which we are proud to fully support, is a testament to her character." Later, during the dancing, I overheard my mother talking to one of her friends. "My younger daughter has never quite lived up to family expectations," she was saying. "Such a shame, but what can you do? They make their choices." That was the final straw. I found John at the bar and whispered that I needed to leave. We slipped out quietly during a group dance number, driving back to our hotel in silence. Back in our room, I broke down completely. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed. "They will never see me as good enough. Nothing I accomplish will ever matter because it's not what they wanted for me." John held me, letting me cry it out. "Then maybe it's time to stop trying to earn their approval," he said finally. "Maybe it's time to build a life that makes you proud, regardless of what they think." That night, we made two significant decisions. First, we would postpone our wedding plans indefinitely. The idea of a celebration focused on family felt hollow now. Second, and more importantly, I would establish clear boundaries with my parents and sister. No more subjecting myself to their judgment and conditional love. The next morning, I blocked my family's phone numbers and social media accounts. I sent a brief email explaining that I needed space and would contact them when I was ready. Then John and I returned home, ready to focus on building our future together without the shadow of family disapproval hanging over us. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but also the most liberating. Little did I know that this painful break would set us on a path to success beyond anything I could have imagined. The first year after cutting contact with my family was the hardest. Birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday evenings when a childhood memory surfaced unexpectedly, all became moments of grief. I mourned not just the relationship we had, but the one I had always hoped we might someday develop. The silence from their end was deafening. No calls, no emails asking me to reconsider. It simply confirmed what part of me had always known. Their love had been conditional, based on my compliance rather than my inherent worth as their daughter. John suggested I try therapy, and after some reluctance, I agreed. My therapist, Dr. Levine, helped me understand the patterns of emotional neglect that had defined my childhood and the impact they had on my self-worth. "What your parents did is called conditional parenting," she explained during one session. "Love and approval are given only when the child meets certain expectations. It's damaging because it teaches children that their inherent value is tied to performance or compliance." But why did they treat Vanessa differently? I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. Some parents unconsciously designate roles to their children: the golden child, the scapegoat. It says more about their own needs and insecurities than about either of you. Week by week, I began to untangle my sense of self from my family's expectations. I realized that the qualities they had criticized, my independence and determination to forge my own path, were actually strengths that had served me well. One evening, as John and I were discussing my latest therapy breakthrough, he suggested a shift in focus. "I know processing your family stuff is important," he said. "But what if we also put energy into building the future we want, not as a reaction to them, but as a positive choice for ourselves?" His words resonated with something deep inside me. For so long, I had defined myself in opposition to my family's expectations. What would it look like to define myself by my own aspirations instead? The next day, I created a vision board for our life together. Not the superficial kind with luxury cars and vacation homes, but one focused on meaningful goals: financial independence, work that made a difference, a home that felt safe and welcoming, relationships based on mutual respect and genuine care. John and I both threw ourselves into our careers with renewed focus. I had been at my marketing agency for 3 years and had built a reputation for innovative digital campaigns. When a major client requested me specifically for their rebranding project, my boss gave me the lead and a small team to manage. The project was challenging and high-profile, requiring long hours and creative problem-solving, but the results exceeded expectations, earning praise from the client and industry recognition. 6 months later, I was promoted to associate director with a substantial salary increase. John's trajectory was similarly upward. His coding skills and problem-solving abilities had caught the attention of senior management, and he was tapped to lead the development of a new software platform. The promotion came with stock options and a salary that nearly doubled his previous earnings. One night, over a celebratory dinner for his promotion, John raised an idea that would change everything. "What if we started our own company?" he asked. "Combining my technical skills with your marketing expertise, there's a gap in the market for agencies that truly understand both sides." The idea took root immediately. We spent evenings and weekends developing a business plan, researching the market, and identifying potential clients. 6 months later, Digital Nexus was born, operating initially from our apartment living room. The early days were challenging. We invested most of our savings into professional branding, a sleek website, and essential software. We worked 16-hour days, with John handling the technical development and me focusing on client acquisition and marketing strategy. Our first client was a small local business owner I had met at a networking event. She took a chance on us despite our limited portfolio. Impressed by our personalized approach and enthusiasm, the project was a success, leading to referrals and, gradually, a growing client base. For months in, we landed our first major client, a regional restaurant chain needing a complete digital overhaul. The project was complex and high stakes, requiring us to hire 2 freelancers to help with the workload. The pressure was immense, with both our reputation and financial stability hanging in the balance. The night before the client presentation, we worked until 3 in the morning, fine-tuning every aspect of the deliverables. I remember looking across our makeshift home office at John, his face illuminated by the computer screen, and feeling a surge of gratitude. While my biological family had dismissed our potential, we were building something meaningful together. The presentation was a triumph. The client not only approved our work but referred us to several business partners. Within 6 months, we had enough consistent business to lease a small office space and hire 3 full-time employees. By the end of our first year, Digital Nexus had established a reputation for innovative solutions that delivered measurable results. Our client roster included several recognizable brands, and we had expanded to a team of 12. Through it all, my family remained absent from my life. Occasionally, I would receive a generic birthday card from my mother or a holiday mass email, including me among dozens of recipients. My father never reached out at all. Vanessa sent a stiff announcement of her first pregnancy, addressed to Sarah and guest, rather than including John by name. These small reminders still hurt, but the pain was dulled by the joy and fulfillment I found in the life John and I were creating together. We had formed close friendships with several couples who shared our values and interests. We had mentors in the business community who provided guidance and support. We had built a chosen family that celebrated our successes and stood by us through challenges. On our 3rd anniversary, John suggested we revisit the idea of getting married. Not a big production, he clarified, just something intimate with the people who have actually been there for us. 2 months later, we exchanged vows in the garden of our favorite restaurant, surrounded by 20 friends who had become family to us. My colleague Sophia stood as my matron of honor, while John's best friend from college served as his best man. There were no elaborate floral arrangements or designer attire, just sincere vows and a genuine celebration. The total cost came to just under $8,000, a fraction of what Vanessa's wedding had cost. But as we danced under string lights with people who truly cared about us, I knew our celebration held something money could not buy: authenticity. I did not invite my parents or Vanessa. The decision brought some sadness, but also a profound sense of protection for this new chapter of our lives. Our wedding would not be tainted by their judgment or conditional approval. The months following our wedding brought unexpected developments for Digital Nexus. A case study we published about one of our successful campaigns went viral in industry circles, bringing attention from larger potential clients and investors. Suddenly, we were fielding calls from venture capitalists interested in funding our expansion. After careful consideration and extensive negotiation, we accepted an investment that allowed us to scale significantly while maintaining control of the company direction. We moved to larger offices, expanded our team to 30 people, and developed proprietary software that streamlined our processes and enhanced our service offerings. 18 months after accepting the investment, we were approached by a major tech company interested in acquiring Digital Nexus. The initial offer was substantial, but John and I were hesitant to give up the company we had built from scratch. After several rounds of negotiation, we reached an agreement that exceeded our wildest expectations, $20 million, with both of us retained as consultants for 2 years with considerable compensation packages. The night the papers were signed, John and I sat on the floor of our apartment, a bottle of champagne between us, slightly dazed by the magnitude of what had just happened. "We did it," John whispered, his voice catching. "We really did it." I thought about the journey from that painful dinner with my parents to this moment of extraordinary success. Every dismissal, every judgment, every time they had told me I wasn't good enough had ultimately pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create a life of meaning and achievement on my own terms. "I want to buy a house," I said suddenly, "a real home somewhere we can put down roots." John smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. Let's start looking tomorrow." Little did I know that our new home would become the catalyst for an unexpected confrontation with the past I had worked so hard to leave behind. With our newfound financial security, John and I began searching for our dream home. We weren't interested in ostentatious displays of wealth, but we did want space, privacy, and a property that reflected our personal aesthetic. After 3 months of looking, we found a stunning contemporary home in an exclusive neighborhood, set on 2 acres with mature trees and a view of the city skyline. The house itself was architectural perfection, 4,000 square feet of clean lines and thoughtful design. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with natural light, while high ceilings created an atmosphere of calm spaciousness. The open-concept main floor featured a gourmet kitchen that would make any chef envious, with custom cabinets, quartz countertops, and top-of-the-line appliances. The primary bedroom suite included a sitting area, fireplace, and a bathroom that resembled a luxury spa, complete with a freestanding soaking tub positioned to enjoy the private garden view. 3 additional bedrooms provided plenty of space for guests or future children, while a separate office suite would allow us to work from home when needed. Outside, the property featured a naturally landscaped garden, a sleek infinity pool that seemed to merge with the horizon, and a covered patio with an outdoor kitchen and fireplace. It was, in every way, the antithesis of the traditional colonial-style home my parents had always valued, with its formal rooms and conventional aesthetics. The asking price was just under $2 million, a sum that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Now, we could purchase it outright, without a mortgage. The day we signed the closing documents and received the keys, I felt a sense of achievement that went beyond material acquisition. This home represented freedom, the tangible result of following my own path, despite the disapproval of those who should have supported me most. We took our time furnishing the house, selecting each piece carefully to create a space that felt both luxurious and welcoming. Modern art from local artists adorned the walls, while comfortable seating invited conversation and relaxation. It became not just a showcase, but a true home, one where we hosted dinner parties for friends and colleagues, celebrated holidays, and built our life together. Meanwhile, we launched a new business venture, a software platform designed to help small businesses compete in the digital marketplace. With the experience and connections gained from Digital Nexus, this new company grew even faster than our first. Within 18 months, we had offices in 3 cities and a valuation that exceeded our previous success. As our professional achievements accumulated, I occasionally heard snippets of information about my family through mutual acquaintances. My father had been named in a medical malpractice lawsuit that had damaged his reputation at the hospital. Though the case was eventually settled, the financial impact had been significant, forcing my parents to downsize their home and adjust their lifestyle. Vanessa's marriage to Gregory had also hit rough waters. His family wealth, which had been a primary factor in my parents' approval, turned out to be mostly an illusion, maintained through excessive debt and questionable financial practices. When his father's company faced bankruptcy following an SEC investigation, the facade crumbled. Gregory lost his nominal job at the family firm and struggled to find employment without any actual skills or experience. I learned that Vanessa and Gregory had been forced to sell their recently purchased home in the exclusive neighborhood my parents had praised so highly. They moved to a modest townhouse in a middle-class suburb, the kind of place my parents had always subtly disparaged. Vanessa had taken a job at a corporate marketing department, finally putting her business degree to practical use out of necessity rather than choice. These developments did not bring me joy, despite everything I did not wish. Hardship on my family. But there was a certain poetic justice in the collapse of the very things they had valued above genuine connection and unconditional love. One bright spring Saturday, John and I were enjoying breakfast on our patio, discussing plans for a charity gala we were hosting the following month, when my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, one of the few people who knew my family history. "Just saw your sister driving slowly past your house. Thought you should know." I felt a chill despite the warm morning sun. Sophia lived 3 houses down from us and had met Vanessa once at our wedding. The fact that she had recognized her was unsettling enough, but the idea of Vanessa essentially spying on our home was deeply disturbing. "Are you sure it was her?" I texted back. "Positive." "She stopped across the street for several minutes, just staring at your house. I was walking the dog and made eye contact with her. She drove away immediately." I showed the message to John, who frowned. "That's strange. Do you think she was just curious, or is something else going on?" "I have no idea," I admitted. "We haven't spoken in over 3 years. Later that afternoon, my question was answered when my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years, my mother. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won out. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Sarah, is that really you?" My mother's voice sounded older, more tentative than I remembered. "Yes, it is me. Is everything okay?" Despite everything, my first thought was concern that someone might be ill or injured. "Yes, well, as okay as can be expected." She paused, seemingly gathering her thoughts. "I think we are overdue for a conversation, don't you? It has been too long." The casual way she referred to our estrangement, as if it had been a mutual decision rather than a direct response to their rejection, made me grip the phone tighter. "Why are you calling now after all this time?" I asked directly. Another pause. "We miss you, Sarah. Family shouldn't be apart like this." And well, Vanessa mentioned she happened to drive by your new home today. "It looks quite impressive." There it was. Not concern for my well-being or regret for past treatment, but a clear awareness of my financial success. "She didn't happen to drive by," I corrected. "We live in a gated community 40 minutes from her neighborhood. She would have had to deliberately seek out our address." "Well, regardless," my mother continued, glossing over this fact. "It made us realize how long it has been since we've seen you. We would love to visit your new home, reconnect, put the past behind us." I closed my eyes, processing the sudden reappearance of my family in my life. 3 years of silence, then Vanessa drives by my house, and suddenly they want to reconcile. "I need to think about this," I said finally. "I'll call you back." John listened as I recounted the conversation, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. "It sounds like they found out you're successful and now they want to be part of it," he observed. "The timing is suspicious, to say the least." I nodded, the same thought having crossed my mind, but part of me wondered if I should at least hear them out, not for their sake, but for my own closure. After much discussion, John and I agreed to a limited meeting. I would invite them to our home, establish clear boundaries, and see if genuine reconciliation was possible, or if their motives were as self-serving as we suspected. I called my mother back the next day. "You can come for coffee this Saturday at 2, I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Just to talk." "Wonderful," she exclaimed. "Your father and I will be there." "Should we bring anything?" "Just yourselves," I replied. "And Mom, Vanessa is welcome to come too." There was a moment of silence. "Oh, I'll let her know. I'm sure she'd love to see you." After ending the call, I felt a mixture of anxiety and resolution. Whatever happened on Saturday, I would face my family from a position of strength, secure in the life and identity I had built for myself. They no longer held power over my sense of worth or belonging. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. John and I prepared a simple spread of coffee, tea, and pastries from a local bakery, setting everything on the patio overlooking the pool and garden. As the clock approached 2, our gate security called to announce visitors. Minutes later, a car I didn't recognize pulled into our circular driveway. My father emerged first, followed by my mother, both looking older than I remembered. Last to exit was Vanessa, her expression difficult to read from a distance. John squeezed my hand once before we moved to open the front door. The moment had arrived to face the family that had once told me I didn't deserve their support. Only now, I was standing in a $2 million home that I had earned entirely without them. Opening the door to my family after 3 years of separation felt surreal. My father had more gray in his hair, deep lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. My mother looked thinner, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of strain. Vanessa, holding a designer purse that looked new but was probably from a previous season, had the pinched expression of someone trying very hard to appear unbothered. Sarah, my mother said, stepping forward with arms outstretched, as if the years of silence had been a minor misunderstanding. You look wonderful. I accepted her brief hug without returning it, then nodded to my father and sister. Please come in. Their eyes darted around our entryway, taking in the soaring ceiling, the modern chandelier, the original artwork on the walls. My mother made a small noise of appreciation while my father straightened his shoulders as if preparing for a business meeting rather than a family reunion. Your home is lovely, my mother offered as I led them through to the main living area. So contemporary. Thank you, John replied, stepping forward to stand beside me. We designed some elements ourselves. My father extended his hand stiffly. John, you're looking well. As are you, sir, John replied with professional courtesy. I gestured toward the patio doors. I thought we could sit outside. The weather is perfect. They followed us out to the patio, where the setting offered a strategic advantage. The spectacular view provided a natural conversation piece, while the open space prevented any feeling of being trapped or cornered. As we settled around the table, an awkward silence fell. I made no move to break it, curious to see how they would begin a conversation they had requested after years of absence. Well, my mother finally said, reaching for a pastry. This is nice. Family together again. Is it? I asked, my voice calm but direct. Family together again after 3 years without a word. My father cleared his throat. Now, Sarah, there's no need for hostility. We are here to reconnect. I'm not being hostile, I clarified. Just realistic. You wanted this meeting, so I assume you have something specific to discuss. My mother shot a glance at my father, some unspoken communication passing between them. We have missed you, she said, her voice taking on the placating tone she had always used when trying to smooth over family tensions. We think it's time to put the past behind us. What past are we referring to exactly? I asked. The part where you told me I didn't deserve your support? Or the part where you called me a disappointment for making my own choices? Vanessa, who had remained silent, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. We all say things we regret in the heat of the moment, she offered. It wasn't the heat of the moment, I corrected her. It was a consistent pattern throughout my life, and it wasn't just words, it was actions, or rather, the lack of them. My father set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. We may have been too harsh, he conceded, the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. But you have clearly done well for yourself. This property, your business success, it is all very impressive. There it was, the acknowledgement of my financial achievement rather than any recognition of the pain they had caused. I noticed he spoke of your business success rather than asking any specific questions about what John and I actually did or how we had built our companies. We have worked hard, John said, his tone neutral. Built 2 successful companies from the ground up. Yes, we heard about your software venture, my mother said, brightening. Patricia Wilson's son works in tech, and he mentioned your name at their dinner party last month. We were so proud to say you were our daughter. The irony was almost painful. After years of expressing disappointment in my career choices, they were now claiming pride in my success, but only after it had been validated by their social circle. Funny, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. I don't recall you being proud when I first launched the business. In fact, I don't recall hearing from you at all. My father waved his hand dismissively. Water under the bridge. The important thing is family coming together now. Why now? John asked directly. Why, after 3 years of no contact? The question hung in the air, uncomfortable but necessary. My mother glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. Well, family shouldn't stay estranged, she said vaguely. And when we realized how well you were doing, it seemed silly to maintain old grievances. When you realized how well we were doing, I repeated, after Vanessa drove by our house. Vanessa flushed slightly. It wasn't like that. I heard through a colleague that you had moved to this neighborhood. I was just curious. Curious enough to look up our address and drive 40 minutes to see it, but not curious enough to call or email in 3 years? The conversation stalled again, the pastries on the table untouched. My father, always the pragmatist, apparently decided to change tactics. The truth is, Sarah, he said, leaning forward slightly. Our family has hit a rough patch. I don't know if you heard about the lawsuit. I heard, I said simply. He nodded, seemingly relieved to skip the explanation. The settlement was substantial. Insurance covered some but not all. We have had to make adjustments. Dad had to take early retirement, Vanessa added, and sell the house. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in their difficulties. And Gregory's family situation has been challenging as well, my mother continued, glancing sympathetically at Vanessa. The Harringtons are not quite as established as we had believed. Vanessa looked down at her hands. Gregory has been between positions for almost a year now. And with the baby coming. You're pregnant? I asked, genuinely surprised by this new information. She nodded, a flicker of real emotion crossing her face. 5 months along. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of connection to this unborn niece I might never know. But the feeling was quickly overshadowed by the realization that this entire reunion had an ulterior motive, becoming increasingly clear. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Children are a blessing. My mother seized on this moment of warmth. There indeed, which is why family is so important. Supporting each other through challenges, celebrating successes together. My father, less patient with the indirect approach, cut to the chase. The medical community can be unforgiving after a malpractice case, regardless of the circumstances. I am consulting now, but rebuilding my reputation requires connections, resources. And Gregory needs investors for his new business venture, Vanessa added. Something in tech, like what you and John do. He has excellent ideas, just needs the right backing. And of course, my mother concluded, families should support each other, the way we supported Vanessa's wedding, for instance. It's just what families do. The audacity was breathtaking. After telling me I didn't deserve their support, after years of silence, they were now sitting in my home expecting financial assistance. Not because they acknowledged their past behavior or showed genuine remorse, but simply because we shared DNA and I now had resources they wanted access to. I looked at John, finding in his eyes the steadiness that had been my true support through everything. Then I turned back to my family, feeling strangely calm and clear. I think I understand now why you wanted to reconnect, I said, my voice even. And I appreciate your honesty, even if it took seeing my home to bring it about. My mother smiled, seemingly relieved that the subtext was now text. So you will help? We are thinking a loan to start, perhaps $200,000 to help your father reestablish his consulting practice, and maybe the same for Gregory's venture. Family investing in family. The casual way she named these substantial sums, as if they were insignificant tokens rather than more money than they had ever offered me, confirmed everything I needed to know about this reunion. I stood up slowly, straightening to my full height. I need to be honest with you too, I said. I didn't invite you here today to negotiate financial arrangements. I invited you because part of me wondered if genuine reconciliation was possible. My father frowned, sensing the shift in direction. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We are simply discussing practical family matters. No, I corrected him. You are asking for financial help from the daughter you explicitly told was undeserving of your support. The daughter whose life choices you criticized and whose wedding you refused to contribute to because, and I quote, I had not earned it. Vanessa interjected. That was different. We didn't know you would become so successful. Her words hung in the air. The naked truth finally exposed. Their treatment of me had been based on a calculation of what I could provide them, not on unconditional love or belief in my worth. Thank you for that clarification, Vanessa, I said quietly. It tells me everything I need to know. I turned to my parents, feeling not anger, but a profound sadness for what might have been. I think you should leave now. All of you. My mother's gasp was theatrical. You are throwing us out? Your own family? I am asking you to leave my home, I corrected. The home I built without your support or approval. The home that apparently only made me worthy of your attention once you saw it. My father stood abruptly. This is outrageous. After all we have done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked, genuinely curious about his perception. He sputtered, unable to provide specific examples. We raised you, educated you. You provided the legal minimum required of parents, I countered, and made it clear at every turn that I was less valuable than my sister because I didn't conform to your expectations. So, you won't help us? Vanessa asked, her voice small. Not even for your niece? The appeal to family obligation was ironic, coming from someone who had stood by silently while our parents dismissed my worth. Still, I felt a twinge of compassion for the unborn child who would enter this complicated dynamic. I will not be financially supporting Dad's career rehabilitation or Gregory's business venture, I said firmly. but I would be willing to set up an education fund for your daughter, provided it is in her name only and cannot be accessed for any other purpose. My offer, meant as a genuine olive branch to my future niece, was met with indignation rather than gratitude. How dare you dictate terms to us? My mother snapped, as if we cannot be trusted with our own granddaughter's future. John, who had remained admirably restrained throughout the conversation, finally spoke. I think Sarah has been more than generous, given the circumstances. Now, I suggest you respect her request to leave. My father glared at him. This conversation is between family members. John is my family, I said firmly. The family I chose, who has supported me unconditionally. Something the three of you might want to reflect on. There was a moment of tense silence before my father turned and headed toward the door. My mother followed, pausing only to say, "You will regret this selfishness, Sarah. When we are gone, you will wish you had been a better daughter." Vanessa lingered briefly, something unreadable in her expression. For a moment, I thought she might say something meaningful, perhaps even acknowledge the inequity of our childhood. Instead, she simply said, "The offer for the baby fund, does it still stand?" "It does," I confirmed. "Contact my lawyer and we will arrange it." She nodded once, then followed our parents. I watched through the window as they drove away, their car growing smaller until it disappeared beyond our gates. Only then did I allow myself to sink into a chair, emotionally exhausted. "Are you okay?" John asked, sitting beside me. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I think I will be." What I couldn't have anticipated was the flood of emails, texts, and voicemails that would begin arriving within hours of their departure. My father demanding reconsideration. My mother alternating between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats about being written out of their will. Vanessa pleading for me to understand their difficult situation. Each message confirmed that I had made the right decision in maintaining boundaries. They still saw me not as a person deserving of respect and genuine connection, but as a resource to be accessed when convenient. That night, I decided to send one final message, an email addressed to all three of them, expressing exactly what I had learned from our years apart and our brief reunion. It would be my last communication for a very long time. The days following my family's visit were emotionally turbulent. I fluctuated between certainty that I had done the right thing and waves of grief for the relationships that might have been. John gave me space when I needed it and comfort when I asked, never once suggesting that I had made the wrong choice. "You set a boundary," he reminded me. "That is not rejection. It is self-protection." A week after their visit, I sat at my desk overlooking our garden and composed the email I had been drafting in my mind for days. It would be my final word on the matter, a closing statement rather than an invitation for further dialogue. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Vanessa, I have given our recent reunion considerable thought. I want to be clear that this email is not written in anger, but from a place of clarity that has taken years to achieve. I do not hate any of you. I do not wish you ill. In fact, I hope you find your way through your current challenges. However, I cannot provide the financial assistance you are seeking. This is not about punishing you for past behavior or withholding out of spite. It is about recognizing that our relationship has never been based on mutual respect or unconditional love, but rather on my compliance with your expectations. For Vanessa, I have arranged an education trust for your daughter as promised. My lawyer will contact you with the details. This is not because I feel obligated, but because I want your child to have options, regardless of our complicated history. Beyond this, I ask that you respect my decision to maintain distance. The 3 years we spent apart were painful, but also healing. I built a life that brings me joy and fulfillment, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide or how I reflect on them. If someday you're interested in a relationship based on genuine connection rather than financial need, I might be open to that conversation. Until then, I wish you well, but need to protect the peace and happiness I have worked so hard to create. Sarah. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then closed my laptop. There was a finality to the action that brought both sadness and relief. I had said what needed to be said without cruelty, but also without compromise. The response was predictable. My father sent a curt message calling me selfish and ungrateful. My mother wrote a lengthy email detailing all she had sacrificed for me, concluding that I was breaking her heart. Vanessa sent a text thanking me for the trust fund, but suggesting I was being unnecessarily harsh with our aging parents. I did not respond to any of them. Instead, John and I focused on moving forward with our lives and the positive impact we could make with our success. We established a scholarship foundation for first-generation college students, particularly those pursuing entrepreneurship without family financial support. The program provided not just tuition assistance, but mentorship and networking opportunities, the kind of support I had wished for during my own college years. We also created an incubator program for women-owned startups, offering seed funding and guidance to promising entrepreneurs. Watching these businesses grow from concept to thriving enterprises brought a satisfaction deeper than any luxury purchase could provide. In our personal life, we continued to nurture the community of friends who had become our chosen family. We hosted regular dinners, celebrated milestones together, and supported each other through challenges. These relationships, based on mutual respect and genuine care, showed me what healthy connections truly looked like. 6 months after the confrontation with my family, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy and trepidation of impending parenthood sparked deep reflection on the kind of mother I wanted to be, the family culture I hoped to create. "I want our child to know they are loved unconditionally," I told John one night as we discussed nursery colors. "That their worth is not tied to achievements or compliance. They will know," John assured me, "because we both understand how important that is." As my pregnancy progressed, I thought often about the patterns of family dysfunction and how easily they could be perpetuated without conscious effort. I read books on emotionally healthy parenting, joined support groups for expectant mothers, and even resumed therapy to process my own childhood experiences before bringing a new life into the world. One evening, while sorting through old photographs for a baby memory book, I found a picture of myself at about 7 years old, standing proudly beside a science fair project. My smile was wide, my posture confident. I remembered that day clearly, the excitement of presenting my work, the blue ribbon I had won. What I also remembered, with adult perspective, was my parents' lukewarm response. "Second place is nice," my father had said. "Vanessa won first last year." Looking at that hopeful child, I made a silent promise to my unborn baby: "You will never be compared. Your achievements will be celebrated for their own merit, not measured against someone else's standard. Your worth will never be in question." 2 months later, our daughter, Emma, was born, a healthy 7-pound baby with John's eyes and my determined chin. Holding her in the hospital, I felt a love so pure and unconditional that it highlighted, by contrast, the conditional nature of the love I had received growing up. My parents and Vanessa sent obligatory congratulations cards and a gift for the baby. I sent polite thank you notes, but did not extend invitations to visit. The boundaries I had established remained important, perhaps even more so now that I was responsible for protecting not just myself, but my child. As Emma grew from infant to toddler, I watched with wonder the person she was becoming, delighting in her uniqueness rather than trying to shape her into a predetermined mold. When she showed interest in anything, whether finger painting or building blocks, we encouraged her curiosity without judgment or expectation. On her 3rd birthday, as we celebrated with the close friends who had become her honorary aunts and uncles, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. From the painful dinner where my parents had declared me undeserving, to the creation of a thriving business, to this moment of simple joy watching my daughter blow out candles, supported by people who loved us authentically. The greatest success in my life was not the $2 million home or the profitable businesses, though those achievements were significant. It was building a life aligned with my own values rather than someone else's expectations. It was creating a family culture based on acceptance and support rather than conditional approval and comparison. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is the rejection that forces us to find our own path. My parents telling me I didn't deserve their help pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create something meaningful on my own terms. Their rejection, painful as it was, ultimately freed me from the constraints of their narrow definition of success. The family we are born into shapes us, but it does not define us. Sometimes we must create our own definition of family, gathering people who see our worth and support our authentic selves. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to maintain boundaries with those who cannot or will not offer the respect and acceptance we deserve. I don't know if my relationship with my parents and sister will ever heal. What I do know is that I am no longer waiting for their approval or validation. I am too busy living a life that makes me proud, raising a daughter who will never question her inherent value, and contributing to a world that recognizes worth beyond material success or social standing. I didn't build this life to prove anything to my family, but I have come to understand that sometimes the cruelest rejections open the most beautiful doors. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own path? How did you handle that difficult decision?